The day I found the second phone wasn't the worst day of my marriage. The worst day was the one before it, when I still believed him. He had a name for her. A little nickname, typed out in messages he thought I'd never see. He called her his piece. And I remember sitting on our bathroom floor, phone shaking in my hands, thinking, what does that make me? I didn't cry. I didn't call my mother. I didn't confront him. I opened a notes app and I started writing everything down. Because if he wanted to play this game, I was going to win it. My name doesn't matter. What matters is this. For 14 months, my husband, David, maintained 2 complete lives. 2 phone numbers. 2 sets of friends. A second apartment, 11 miles from ours, that I didn't know existed. He thought he was untouchable. He didn't know I used to work in insurance fraud investigation. Stay with me, because what I found and what I did with it changed everything. David and I met at a work conference in Phoenix, 2015. He was funny, generous, the kind of man who remembered your coffee order and your mother's birthday. We got married 2 years later. Small ceremony, big backyard, his grandmother's ring. By year 4, we had a house, a rescue dog named Pepper, and what I genuinely believed was a partnership. He traveled for work, a medical device sales rep, always somewhere. Chicago, Atlanta, Dallas. I worked remotely, managed the household, and trusted him completely. That was my biggest mistake, but at the time, it felt like love. The first sign I ignored was a credit card statement, a dinner charge at a restaurant in Denver. He was supposed to be in Minneapolis. I asked. He explained it away, a last-minute client change. He told me, hadn't he? I probably just forgot. I didn't forget, but I let it go, because he was confident, and I was trusting. And sometimes those 2 things together are the most dangerous combination in the world. The second phone was a mistake he almost got away with. I found it in March, tucked inside a winter coat he hadn't worn in months, a coat I'd pulled out to donate to Goodwill. It was a prepaid. No pascode. And the last message thread from someone saved only as R. Read. Can't wait for Thursday. Tell her you have a conference. Thursday was 4 days away. He had, in fact, already told me he had a conference. I put the coat back. I put the phone back exactly where I found it. And then I sat in my car in the driveway for 45 minutes, remembering how to breathe. There are 2 kinds of people when they discover something like this. The ones who confront immediately, and the ones who go quiet and go to work. I went quiet. I drove to an office supply store, bought a cheap notebook, and started what I would later refer to in the attorney's office, in front of David's very pale face, as the file. Entry number 1. Prepaid phone discovered March 4th. Location. Right interior pocket, gray wool coat, hallway closet. Last message. Can't wait for Thursday. Tell her you have a conference. Sent 9:47 p.m., March 1st. Saved contact name. R. I didn't know who R was yet. By the end of that month, I knew everything. I want to be clear. I am not a vindictive person by nature, but I am a thorough one. Before I was a stay-at-home manager of our household, I spent 6 years in insurance fraud investigation. I know how evidence works. I know what holds up. I know the difference between suspicion and proof. And I knew that whatever I built, I was going to build it right. Our finances were technically joint, but David handled most of it. He gave me a monthly household allowance and managed the rest. That should have been a flag. At the time, I told myself it was efficiency. I requested paper copies of every bank and credit card statement for the past 18 months. 4 accounts, 2 credit cards. David used 1 card for work expenses, the one I rarely looked at. In 18 months, I found 41 hotel charges in cities where his company had no clients. 11 restaurant charges for 2 people on nights he told me he was dining with male colleagues. Monthly transfers of $800 to an account I didn't recognize. A charge from a jewelry store in Austin. I own no jewelry from Austin. Total unaccounted spending, just over $34,000. I photographed every statement. I built a spreadsheet. Color-coded. David's company car had a GPS tracker, standard fleet policy. I called the fleet management company, identified myself as the account holder's spouse, and explained I needed records for an insurance matter. Old habits. They emailed me 14 months of location logs. He had been to a residential address in Brookfield, 11 miles from our house, 37 times. Always on weeknights. Always between 6 p.m. and midnight. I drove past the address on a Tuesday. It was an apartment complex. Second floor, Unit 208, had lights on. I did not stop. I wrote down the address and drove home. I hired a private investigator. I know people say don't do this, but I did it, and I'll tell you why. I needed photographs. Documents are arguable. Images are not. Within 10 days, the investigator gave me a folder. Her name was Rachel, 31 years old, a dental hygienist. She had met David 18 months ago at, and I want you to really appreciate this, a charity fundraiser I had organized. He had met his girlfriend at my event. In my venue. Possibly while I was in the next room arranging the silent auction items. The folder contained 14 photographs of them together. At her apartment. At restaurants. Walking her dog. She appeared to have no idea he was married. The private investigator confirmed what I suspected. David was splitting time between our home and Unit 208. He kept clothes there. A toothbrush. He had given Rachel a key. He had told her his name was Daniel. That he was divorced. That he was hoping to move closer to Brookfield when his lease expired. Our lease, our mortgage, had his name on it. I had everything I needed. Almost. I waited one more week. Long enough to make a copy of every document, store them off-site in my sister's house, and meet with a divorce attorney to understand exactly what I was walking into. The attorney's exact words. "You've done my job for me." I chose a Sunday. He came home from what he'd told me was a weekend conference in Columbus. The PI had confirmed he'd spent it at Rachel's apartment in Brookfield. I had set the dining room table. Coffee. His mug. I was sitting with my hands folded when he walked in. "Hey," he said. He kissed me on the cheek. He smelled like her apartment. "Good weekend." "Sit down, David," I said. He did. I slid the folder across the table. He opened it. And I watched his face do something I had never seen it do before, every version of itself cycling through in about 4 seconds. Confusion, recognition, calculation, and then finally something that might have been shame, but looked more like fear. "I can explain. I know about Rachel," I said. "I know about the apartment. I know about the $34,000. I know you told her your name was Daniel. I know you used a prepaid phone you hid in your winter coat. I know about the jewelry store in Austin. I know everything, David. There is nothing left to explain." He didn't speak. "What I need from you now," I said, "is a signature. My attorney has prepared paperwork." He looked up. "You have an attorney?" "I've had an attorney for 3 weeks," I said. He started to cry. I had expected that. He reached for my hand. I had expected that too. I moved my hand away. "I don't need anything from you emotionally right now," I said. "I need your signature. I need you out of this house by Friday. And I need the account number for wherever that $800 a month was going because that money is going to be factored into the settlement." He signed. Not that day. It took 2 weeks and his own attorney. But he signed. Because I had left him nothing to negotiate with. I want to tell you about Rachel because she deserves a moment in this story. 3 weeks after I confronted David, I wrote her a letter. Not vindictive. Not cruel. I told her who I was. I told her what David had told her wasn't true. I told her she deserved to know. I told her I was sorry it happened to both of us. She called me 2 months later. We talked for 2 hours. She was devastated. She had genuinely loved him, or the version of him she'd been given. She thanked me for telling her. We are not friends, but we're something. As for David, the divorce was finalized 7 months later. Between the financial accounts, the marital asset division, and what the court considered his concealment of funds, I walked away with the house, a settlement, and Pepper. He got his secret life. Except now it wasn't a secret anymore, because Rachel had also moved on, and the mutual friends he tried to preserve knew exactly why we divorced. Some people ask me, was it worth it? All that work, all that documentation, all those months of knowing and not saying anything? And my answer is always the same. I spent 14 months married to a lie. I spent 6 weeks building the truth. The truth was faster. And the truth, documented, organized, presented without emotion in a room with an attorney, was the most powerful thing I have ever held. I didn't need to scream.
I didn't need to beg.
I didn't need to catch him in the act or humiliate him publicly. I just needed a notebook, a spreadsheet, and the patience to let him believe he was safe. He was never safe. He just didn't know it yet.